This is the Unshadowed Thought Podcast with James Hall. This podcast is dedicated to Michelle Goyevich, Ed White, Caitlin Treacle, and I Chan, and also all the others that have lost their life as a direct result of psychiatric harms.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Lately, I've been thinking about what I could record on additional kind of content on top of, the same old kind of stuff, giving updates on healing and different things like that. And I realize a big part of my healing is understanding and accepting, my life, thinking more about my life, meditating on my life. As I mentioned before, meditation kind of comes in two forms, right? There's just meditation, a kind of Zen meditation where you're just quiet and calm and you kind of let your body fully relax and kind of breathe in the calm that's around you. And then there's thought-based meditations where you think through what's going on in your head. Why do I have these thoughts? Why do I have these ideas? Are they correct? Are they incorrect? Is this really what I believe? Am I acting based on what I really believe? We give this kind of constructive thought and criticism to what we're doing and why, and the thoughts that we have, because it's really important that we're considering our thoughts, because some of the thoughts that we have are destructive, unhelpful, and sometimes it's not what we really believe, but we may be echoing thoughts of the people, places, and things around us when it's not even, doesn't even really belong to us. In fact, a big part of our personality, or maybe arguably almost all of our personality, comes from ideas from the outside that come in that we accept and then take as our own, and then kind of proceed thinking and acting these different ways. So since this is such a big part of healing and going forward, I really don't see any way out of having this kind of conversation. It's a much, much, much deeper conversation, and it is a much, much, much more personal conversation, and a much, much, much more kind of provocative and volatile conversation. It will probably touch on topics that will challenge the way everybody thinks about everything, including myself. As I vocalize and say the things that I'm really deeply thinking out loud, it'll cause me to reflect even more on what I'm thinking, saying, and doing. And I'm sure, based on what I put out in the podcast, my ideas will change, and I'll learn from others and learn from myself, and my ideas will change even more. But I think what I'm unwilling to accept is that some of the things I've learned and experienced in my life are kept to myself when they could be helping other people out, because I've been stuck lots of times in my life, in my thinking, in my career, in my personal relationships, lots of stuff. And I've talked with people, or I've listened to podcasts, or I've shared things and had people share things with me that popped me out of that stuck position. Lots of times I knew what I wanted to do, or I had an idea, but I didn't have the confirmation that I needed to go forward because I was conflicted or confused. So I hope that the meditations that I share do the same thing for others. It kind of pops them out of a place of complacency, or it gives them a kind of change of mind that propels them into the direction that they need to go. Because at this point in my recovery, I've hit at a crossroads where I think physiologically I've improved as much as I can, or almost as much as I can. And I've come to a place where I need to mentally transcend the majority of my circumstances that are left. So I have to change my thinking into believing that I can get better, and believing that I can heal further to allow that to happen, with a negative mindset, or a mindset that, you're permanently injured. You can only go so far. If you believe in your injury, you're breathing life into it. And even if you're not injured like that anymore, your body will manifest symptoms or sensations of that injury, even when it's not there. That's just one kind of facet of what I'm talking about. But there's changing your thought and transcending your circumstances using your mind and what you believe. And then there's a further transcendence that kind of the mystics and our ancestors talked about, where you further kind of transcend even the human condition with the way you think and the way you perceive your environment, which I've had experiences with that I abandoned a long time in the past. But learning what I am now about getting better and going further invites back in all those things that I learned in the past, because my problem was, at the time, I had transcended some part of the human condition. I was much younger, and I really didn't have many difficult experiences compared to what I'm experiencing now, or I always had perfect health. So as I was moving up and feeling more clear-minded, more connected to everything around me and the things above me and below me, I didn't understand what that meant and why it was precious. I only knew that I felt great and I kind of could do whatever I wanted, right? So it's interesting. I heard or read something recently about how seriousness was a part of some monks' belief system. So like laughing, having a good time and joking around wasn't really unacceptable. And that struck me because that's always been something in my mind that's bounced around. In laughing, having a good time is an incredible experience that you can share with others, and it does all kinds of great stuff for you, right? But seriousness also has a place, right, in keeping you alive and keeping you healthy and keeping you focused on where you want to go and understanding what's behind you, different things like that, which in itself is kind of doesn't even sound like that useful or that important of a thing, right? And we have all these lofty ideals about just being present, just living in that moment, and that's great. But I will tell you from my experience is that serves you until it doesn't. Meaning, like, if you're kind of transcendent and you're living a life where your head's in these ideals and everything's working out, you can be there. But once you fall for whatever reason or another, then you have to rely on a few other principles to try to get you through, and seriousness can be one. So anyways, to take it back to what I was just talking about, was when I was younger, I didn't possess that seriousness. And it wasn't a requirement for me to advance or to do well at what I was doing. But not possessing seriousness, I took certain things for granted, like my health, like how well I was doing, how much I had achieved kind of in my spiritual practice. And then so once you start losing it or let go of it, you do those things because you don't understand how precious it is, right? You don't have this seriousness about your practice. You take things for granted. You're a little bit too lighthearted about things, right? So a lack of seriousness allowed other things to grow that were far more damaging. So based on that, I'm really, really grateful for my past experiences, because if I didn't have them, then at this point in time, the things that I'm pursuing, I wouldn't have had experiential confirmation that what I'm trying to do is real and possible. But because I have done these things before and I have experience with it, I feel much differently about it. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, because I know that it's possible for me to attain what I'm going after. It gives me this lackadaisical kind of feeling about it, like, okay, I'll get started tomorrow, instead of having a feeling like, hey, I'm trying to achieve something impossible. I better start today and I better go all out and as hard as I can for it and really try to get it figured out. So everything has its ups and downs. Everything has its pros and cons. There are always two sides of every single coin. And that's what makes life so dynamic and so possible and so impossible at the same time. So I decided to discuss my meditations here. I'll probably preface or categorize or dichotomize these episodes with meditations in front of it if it's strictly something that I'm thinking about and expressing to the people that want to listen. But there's a lot of things I've been thinking about lately that I wanted to share, and a lot of those things are strictly based on my thoughts of the world and what's going on and what I see and what's going on and what other people see and what's going on and how we think about it. I think the biggest thing is everyone around me sees things in different dynamics. They share a lot of dynamics in the way they think, and they kind of argue the idiosyncratic nature of their viewpoint and this sort of thing. But I see things pretty drastically different than everyone around me based on my experiences and my thinking and when I say my experiences, what I'm going through now, what I have gone through, and what I've gone through with different people and relationships and what I've seen in the past. I haven't always thought for myself, but from a very, very young age, I was thinking for myself and taught to think for myself above all else. So I think that sent me down a different path. When I was growing up, I thought I always wanted to be different than everyone else. And I had a lot of my friends did, probably because that's who I gravitated towards. So we ended up making friendships where we all wanted to be very different than kind of the trendy popular stuff that was going on. But when I started thinking like everyone else, these little red flags go off in my head. It's like, hey, you better think harder about what you're doing, because every time that you've gone on board with everybody else, things have gone badly, and just the mainstream versions of what's going on in the mainstream thinking has always been pretty harmful, in my opinion. And it's always lacked perspective and this kind of grounding that we shall have in reality, rather than these kind of explosive contagious ideas. So given that, so that's kind of my background, and trying to be different all the time isn't always a good thing either, depending on where you're at and who you're hanging out with. So I've learned a lot from that as well. But so I decided to share that stuff. I think it'll be cool. It'll be super interesting if you're interested in hearing other people's ideas. Yeah, a lot of different topics I'm thinking about. Certainly spirituality will be a big one. My own spirituality has been a huge thing for me my whole life. It's always been involved, even at the times I wasn't spiritual and I felt totally devoid of any spiritual nature. Like when I was working a lot for, a really big corporation, I felt pretty much empty inside. So yeah, I've reflected a lot on that lately. So it's talking about spiritual things, thinking about, I don't think I can avoid talking about politics, or at least my perspective on politics. It will definitely be drastically different than anything you're hearing out there. And that's how I feel comfortable is if I'm not thinking like everybody else. So it definitely comes that way with politics. A lot of other topics that are burning out there. I'm going to address them in, I think, a really different sort of way, and a really fundamental kind of way, so that people don't start getting these ideas about who or what they think I am, because I am very fluid, changing, and simple, in a lot of ways. So sometimes if I say my thoughts, I think people misconstrue what I'm saying and thinking for like what I am or who I am and how, and like and what I believe. I think, right? Like it's so funny, and maybe you find yourself in this position now. I really don't like having conversations about the same old stuff, like sports and even politics and stuff, because everyone assumes you're going to kind of like have this certain narrative and you're going to side with them and you're going to give um give them a lot of leeway and try to make them feel good about their opinions and stuff like that. And I don't do that. I don't believe in that. But I do believe in speaking your mind and articulating and having conversation that gets you to think and that you gain something from, right? So that usually means bringing up uncomfortable questions, right? So usually when you say something, kind of when you say something different, right? Something that someone's not expecting, they generally think that you are something in particular, and that because you're thinking about something and talking with them about it, that means that's what you believe, and you're trying to get them to believe the same thing. Well, that's not the case. And when I have a discussion with someone, it's because I'm open to what they're thinking, and I'm putting my own thoughts out there about it. Just because I say something crazy like the earth is flat, right? It doesn't mean I believe that the earth is flat, right? It'd be like, you know, I'm I'm thinking the earth is flat. There's a lot of evidence for that, right? And then you discuss it, and then you change your opinion based on what you hear and the information that you find and what's in your gut, what you believe and different stuff like that, right? So keep an open mind. I always have an open mind. It's interesting. Some people will tell you, I believe this, and that's it. That's the end of the story. I never, this is my belief system. It'll never change. That's kind of impossible, right? Like all of our belief systems are changing all the time. They might not change a lot, but just by definition, by existing, like you are changing, you are subject to change, whether you like it or not. Your ideas and your beliefs are going to change over time, no matter how hard you try to keep them the same, right? I mean, I know younger folks whose ideas shift radically, their belief systems shift radically, on a freaking weekly or monthly basis. I know older people that have been set in their ways for a very, very long time, but as their physical bodies change and their memory changes and all these things start to shift based on their habits, their ideas start to shift and their beliefs start to shift. And some of them I'm looking at, I'm like, you don't even have any choice in this, right? This is just you attaining old age, right? And so people think they have a lot of control, but it's kind of a myth. People work really hard to control you and keep you where they want you, but your control or your level of control is a lot less than what you probably think. And what you think about how much you control things is probably has a lot to do with your physical health, your mental health as well. I mean, it has been for me in the past, tremendous amount. I've always tried to keep everything exactly where I wanted it and exercise a high level of control over everything. And now I'm realizing that was a massive problem for me in the past, and it is still. I'm working really, really hard to give up all semblance of control over everything in my life. I literally do not want any control over anything in my life. And the reason for that is if you contrast the way I was living when I was a child, when I had no control and I didn't want any control and I didn't accept control. I just woke up every day and did whatever was going on and tried to had fun, did what I had to do, did whatever, right? My level of happiness and joy and, my sense of adventure, my zeal for life was through the roof, right? And I noticed over the course of my life, the more I tried to control, the more I expected certain outcomes from everything that I did, my quality of life went down. And guess what? Your brain function drops with that too. So if you everything is very Cartesian, everything is very cause, you know, cause and effect, then your brain stops working. It doesn't have any need to work. You do something you always do, and then you get the expected result all the time. You might as well be, popping your head open and taking an ice cream scooper and shoveling parts of your brain out and throwing them in the trash. Like, your brain was designed, this is historical perspective, for you to get up every morning, things to shift and to change, and then for you to adapt and for you to deal with them. And you'd be constantly dealing with exploring different areas, new things happening, searching for new things, running into new things, trying to understand new things. In a way, like all of our advanced, level of knowledge and sharing information, all this stuff, we think we know everything about the world, but the fact is we know very little. But the things that we do know and the information that we do share, we share it so often and so much. We give ourselves this really sincere sense of safe space, and everything is known, and we know exactly what we don't know. So you just keep that over here, and this is all the stuff that we do know. So keep that in front of you and just do what you need to do based on everything that you know, and everything will be fine. And you just keep doing that over and over again. And guess what? Everything's great, and you can control your life and manage everything, and everything will stay nice and safe and tidy. It doesn't take much brain power to do that. And that's what people are doing. I mean, there's this model of kind of laziness that I subscribed to for an incredibly long time and still do. And I'm trying to break as well. Like, keep everything easy so that you can relax and things aren't hard on you. I'm not sure that's helpful. I don't know. At one point I tried to start doing the least I could every day. I always thought that if I do the least I can every day, then I'll have lots of time to enjoy myself and to have fun and to do other stuff. Well, it seems to me that when I do that, I just end up doing more controlled stuff and more stuff that I already know about, and more easy stuff in my day, rather than actually doing something harder, challenging, or different. So yeah, there's some reflections, some meditations that I've had lately about things. And I think I watch kids play and do stuff, and I reflect very, very deeply on those things, because I see the joy and excitement and happiness that the children possess. And then I watch and I look and I observe at the adults that I know in my life. And some of the ones I know have, that childlike perspective on life still, but the vast majority of them don't. And to me, there's a very high correlation between, how people think, how they manage their lives, and then how they feel, and how healthy their bodies are. Correlation isn't causation, but it could be. So these are the things I'm trying to observe and learn from and gain some wisdom from, and then experiment in my life to see if I can make changes in the direction that I would like, based on my observations and my learning from them, which is very scientific, but it's still the way I'm thinking and operating. But I'm also incorporating practices into my life through meditation and being spontaneous, that hopefully are stimulating other parts of my brain and body to heal and to come back alive, and to start pumping joy and gratitude and wonder and amazement into my life as well. So that's where I'm at. And I was hoping to share that with everybody, because I think it's a critical, I'm convinced now that that's a critical part of healing. And the people that I know don't really seem to get that. And I don't think they've really been exposed to the things that I'm going to talk about. And while a lot of the people that I know, they don't get that and they don't care, they also don't seem to have the seriousness of the problems that I have. I know that that might not be the case for you. And the people listening to this have huge opportunities for growth and healing, and having more joy and fulfillment in their lives. And I want to give you the tools to transcend your situation into those things, which takes thought and energy and effort. But you can do it. Again, I talked about this initially, but no reason to falsify anything or exaggerate or anything on this podcast. Like, I'm just giving you my straight, honest opinion and experience so that you guys can benefit from it. There's really the things that I talk about will probably seem strange and wild sometimes, but it's I'm sharing the fullest memory that I have of all this stuff, and I'm being as accurate as I can. There's something else I wanted to say a moment ago and I've forgotten, but I'll say it now. The other thing is that through these kinds of thoughts experiments, these meditations, these ideas that I've had, and my experiences learning brand new things, they have given me a massive amount of relief at times, just running them down. So to put it this way, so hurt by TMS, like, feel like death every single day, right? And I'm doing things like I'm trying to learn about how TMS injury works, right? Trying to find other people that were injured like me, all this stuff. Well, along that journey, I would come up empty-handed for a long time, and I'd be thinking, and I just can't think or understand or figure out, what I'm dealing with. But these sparks would shower me at certain times. I'd find, all of a sudden I would find 2 or 3 people that were experiencing the same problems that I had that had TMS. And even though I felt horrible every single day up to that point, my brain would just be showered with, all these new ideas flooding and sharing this new information, sharing feelings with these people, thoughts and feelings with these people, and learning from these people. And my mind would just explode with positive feelings. Even if through my injury, everything was dumbed and muted down by like 90%, right? Even that 10% of change that I could feel going through my brain and my body based on learning something new and exciting, or feeling like, hey, maybe I can get a lawsuit going with this information, right? That excitement. Hey, maybe I can finally find out what happened to me. That profound kind of, what do you call it? That profound sense of, like adventure or exploration into something unknown, right? Those things, they illuminated my brain, and I rode them out for a while, and they bought me time. They bought me currency on my injury to where I could just catch a break from all the unpleasantness that I had been dealing with for a while. And I would ride that out as hard and as long as I could, learning things about my injury, emailing people, talking with people, doing those things. Because there's something magnetic about other human beings. And when we talk to them, we share this consciousness, and we just get relief from what we're dealing with. And when we're done talking, a few minutes later, we may go back to feeling crappy, but there's something incredibly helpful about that, catching that break by relating and talking to people and learning from other people, that along this journey, that's kept me alive, and that's kept me going forward, even if I wasn't going forward much, or even if I was just breaking even every day with that stuff. There was something magical about it. There's something incredible about it. And that's what sharing these meditations are about as well. They're about sparking thoughts and ideas inside you that hopefully carry you a little bit further. Because looking back at my journey, right, I don't know what my life would be like now if I hadn't found any of the people that I found, if I hadn't learned the things that I learned. Those all sparked drastic changes in thought and the way my mind was working at the time, right? If I just constantly hit brick walls, if I just couldn't figure anything out, or I just gave up at some point, I don't know where I'd be at. Maybe I'd be in the same spot. Maybe I wouldn't be here. Maybe I'd be in a drastically different spot. I think that those things all sparked big changes in the direction that I was going, and big changes in my mind, and big physiological changes in the activity going on in my mind, right? There's thoughts that are changing, and then there's physiological activity that's changing as well, right, in my brain, and it all has an impact. So that's where I'm going with this thing. That's why I decided to share. I'm hoping that the people that listen to this it kind of excites some sort of creativity in one way or another for you. And the way it has for me. And I think that's a part of living. And I think that's a part of getting to a higher place, into a better place. And you think about it, in the past, our ancestors, people that came before us, right? This is largely all that they had, right? They didn't have the internet. They didn't have cars. They didn't have stuff. They had to walk out and talk to the people around them and share ideas and try to learn and to cope and to build and to change if they wanted to get anywhere, right? We think of history as being kind of drab and droll, and very predictable and, very basic and slow moving. Like we look back at, the further back in history, it all seems to be kind of benign to me anyways. And maybe I just have a poor understanding of history. I mean, I think of this history as an exciting topic. There's lots of amazing things going on, but I also think these historical topics and the things we've learned about history, there's like 100 or 200 years between, big changes in history, sometimes thousands of years, right? Between big changes and ideas and things. So, it all seems to be, very slow moving, benign kind of thing. But I think the real history, what was really going on, was far different than what we assume about history, because all archaeology, recorded history, all this stuff, this is just what survived. I suspect that the greatest things just didn't survive. And history is also written by the victors, right? So many things have been destroyed and so many ideas have been snuffed out based on, the narrative of power that was going on at the time. And maybe that sounds silly to some folks, but I don't think so. I think people also that were highly intelligent, there's a few of them I can think of, though, that they kept their mouth shut and they didn't share their ideas. They didn't write them down because they knew if they were found out, they'd probably be murdered or crucified or something. So I think a lot of these, I think they have been passed down somewhere. They've been shared somewhere, but I don't think it's made it to most of us. And I think that's pretty tragic. And if we knew the real history out there, that it would be far cooler and far more amazing than we know, and most certainly are being taught. So yeah, so those are my thoughts for today. I've got an idea for the first cast I want to do based on my experiences and kind of my meditations and my thoughts lately. There's some basic stuff I want to start with, and then based on how that goes, I might start getting to some more controversial topics. I think some of the more modern and controversial topics out there will be some of the more important ones, because I think some of us are consumed by these things and maybe have a orthodox perspective. I don't know if that's the right word, or a conventional perspective, because that's all they've been exposed to so much of those things, and generating our own thoughts and seeing how things can be different, maybe very alien to some of us. I know for me, for a long time they were, and I've gotten far away from thinking on my own about things. So even though these things don't impact me, I don't care very much. Just having the stimulation of having different ideas and different things to think about and different perspectives, they also give me hope for the future too, right? Because if we don't plan on being injured for the rest of our lives, then we'll return to, making decisions, engaging other people in conversation, and being part of what's going on out there. And when we do that, I think we want to feel well equipped to handle everything that we want to handle and create new ideas and to push for change. The one thing I hope is that from this kind of community of injury and unfortunate circumstances, that we are a factor for change going forward. And to me, that almost sounds silly. And for a long time, I thought that was silly. I was like, well, those of us that are most injured, we're, when we do get better, we're just going to maintain a low profile for the rest of our lives and just get by and take care of ourselves really well. And that's not a bad idea. I might end up doing that. I don't know. But the kicker is that those of us out here that have been hurt, that really understand what's really going on well, because we've been forced to by our circumstance, we're the ones that will have the passion and the energy and the ideas that will be able to spark and generate change and present those contagious ideas to those that are around us. That'll spread like wildfire and will make real change. I can guarantee you the people that aren't hurt, I've been around them thousands and thousands of them, all working regular jobs. They're all just trying to get paid. They're all just doing their thing. They're living really benign, basic lives, free of any real, motivation to do something that's right or to do something that will generate change, right? Change is very, very scary idea, right? Everyone that has not been hurt, that just is kind of doing their thing, right, and has had relatively non-turbulent life, they do not like change. The people that are in good positions out there, they do not like change. They do not want change because it's an unknown. Change is an unknown, right? The kind of change that we're talking about. I have plenty of scumbags that I worked for that pushed change on me constantly as a mechanism of control, right? But change isn't just saying what you want another human being to do and then telling them to do it, right? That's not change. That's really the same thing. That's the oldest narrative there is. It's slavery. We have different terms for it now, but corporate life, corporate business, having to work for a living, it's just it's not dynamic. It's just different mechanisms of control being exercised at different times to keep things the same. So you have to really question, what's change, what's not. Change is something powerful that has the ability to make a big difference. But as with everything unknown or everything important, good, right, it has the potential to be unpleasant as well. And most people will look at it that way. They'll see the negatives in there rather than the potential positives. And those of us that are trying to make change, we will not accept the negatives, right? We just push forward for the positive. And for us, it's a lot safer. It's a lot more, comforting trying to change for a positive, knowing that you won't accept anything less than good positive change, and you're willing to do anything to work that out. It's very different than someone that's lazy, that's trying to just keep things rolling in a good direction, and as predictable as possible. That's not what we're going for. So anyways, thought I'd throw this out as a heads up, and probably step into a new series called Meditations in an effort to try to help everybody out mentally. I've been working on the physical stuff for a while, but I think the mental component is the biggest component out there, and I want to start tackling it and giving it some tools and ideas that I've used. So hopefully that'll help some people out. So anyways, this one's a little bit shorter, but hopefully I expressed what I needed to and you got it. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.